Hi, fourth grade. I pray that you guys had a great spring break, that you got to be outside a little bit. It was kind of a gorgeous week despite the weather on Easter. The rest of the week was pretty good. Hopefully you got to do some fun, unique things while at home. We are trying to stay creative at my house and find interesting, fun things to do, so I pray that you guys are as well. I miss each of you. I wish so bad we could be in class. Hensley is really missing you guys. I know she would much rather be in class than at home, and I'm sure you guys would all be too. So that being said, this week we don't have a whole lot of complicated work. Probably before you got to this video you did some review work and you did a test. So we are actually going to start a new unit, and that's the only lesson that you guys have to watch this week. We're starting a unit on how to use words correctly. We've learned all 8 parts of speech so far, so if you want to challenge yourself, try to name all 8 parts of speech to a parent this week, and what job does each part of speech do. So don't just name verb, tell what job a verb does. Don't just name adjective, tell what job the adjective does. Try to name all 8 to your parents. They'll be super impressed with you. Remember, these 8 are not going to go away. You're going to see them all throughout the rest of your school career. They're just going to go further in depth, so don't forget them. Don't just think, oh, now we've done all 8, I don't have to remember them anymore. You do. You guys have done excellent this year, and so don't let that knowledge go to waste. So let's talk about using these words correctly. Now that we know what all 8 are, we're going to talk about something called subject and verb agreement. You guys know that agreement means that we have to agree on something. That means we collectively both have the same thing in mind, right? We're agreeing. We're not disagreeing. We're not thinking opposite things. We're thinking the same thing. Subjects and verbs have to do this too. Specifically, we're talking about if we have a singular subject, oops, not P, and that means we're going to need a singular verb. Okay, I have told you guys before this year that singular subjects, typically nouns that are singular, don't have an S, but typically nouns that are verbs that are singular do. Like, the bird plays in the rain. Okay, bird is my subject, it's singular. And plays is my verb. It is singular as well, and it has that S on the end, okay? So they're actually opposite, nouns and verbs are. Typically, singular nouns don't have S's, and singular verbs do. But let's look at these. I'm going to grab another marker. My markers are running out of ink. Let's look at this and turn it into plural. The birds, plural, play in the rain. Okay, now I have added a plural subject and I need a plural verb. Notice how my plural verb doesn't have an S. Okay, so verbs and nouns are kind of opposite in that way, in their normal form. Now we're talking about irregular verbs and things. We're talking about in their normal form. In their normal everyday average form, plural nouns take an S and plural verbs do not. Singular nouns don't have an S and singular verbs do. So if you can think about them being opposite, usually you can keep that and make it make sense. So this is what we're talking about when we say that subjects and verbs must agree. If we have a singular noun, singular subject, we need a singular verb, and if we have a plural subject, we need a plural verb. And so they give you lots of examples. If you look on page 231, they give you plenty of examples there. You can read over that. And then in this box, this look closely box, it's giving you verbs that are singular. And the verbs that are singular, it's wanting you to notice how all of them end in S, because like we said, nouns and verbs are opposite in this way. So You're going to be doing some practice with figuring out which ones show singular nouns and verbs and which ones show plural. You're going to do some practice on page 232 with that. On page 233, it's pulling out this special situation where sometimes there's a prepositional phrase that separates the noun from its verb, okay? Like, here's an example. Look at number 1 on that page. It says, the sound of many voices, and then it gives you a choice, was or were heard. Okay, in this, what they're talking about here is this prepositional phrase sometimes trips people up. Of many voices, voices is plural, right? More than one voice, not verse. And so sometimes people would be tricked into choosing the plural verb were here, okay? But that's not our subject. This is just a prepositional phrase that can be taken out of the sentence altogether. And if it is, then we know that the sound is our subject. If we pretend like this isn't here, this sentence would say, the sound was heard. That's how I know that I need the singular verb was, because sound is just one sound. It's just a singular sound, okay? So that's how they're asking you to do this with these sentences on page 233, is they're wanting you to recognize that there's a prepositional phrase that splits the subject from the verb, and if you take it out, you should be able to hear or figure out if this is singular or plural and which verb you need to go with that. The next part on there is another look closely box. So sentences often begin with there is, here are, and there was, or here were. The words there, here in such sentences are not subjects. In sentences beginning with here or there, you must look carefully after the verb for the subject so that you can make the verb agree with it. Like, here's their example. Here is water in the desert. Okay? Here is this word. Remember, they're saying sentences that start with here or there. I know that is my verb. Okay? It's a being verb. And I'm going to ask, what is? Well, it's not here. Okay? That's kind of tricky when the words here and there are in a sentence. It can trick you. Actually, the subject is water, and it comes after the verb here. And that's what they're telling you. In a sentence that starts with here or there, make sure you carefully study and find if the sentence is after the verb in those. So this is here or there sentences, an example. And this one was prepositional phrase in between subject and verb. Don't let these two situations trip you up in making sure that your subject and verb agrees, okay? So you guys are going to be working on those pages all the way to page 234, and that is it for the week. I miss you guys. I am praying for you guys, praying that we get to see each other again before the end of the year, because I terribly, terribly miss all of you. So good luck, and reach out if you need help.